thank you very much for the very nice introduction. Actually, I was wondering why I'm invited, because, especially after Professor Ernst's speech, because I have not invented anything. I like mathematics, but all other natural science, no. Thank you. And I could say I'm invited because I took a very large personal risk. At least a lot of people consider that to be a risk. I'm a banker. And I switched from a banking career in Frankfurt after 15 years to the NGO sector. I first was the National Director of Amnesty International Germany, and now since 2 years I'm CEO of SOS Villages. I had the most two asked questions are, how did you do that? Career advice I give in the coffee break. The second most asked question, how can I help you? How can I support you? You know, I think it's very good what you're doing. You are a good person. I come to that later. And I want to support you. This makes me happy when people said that after I made that switch. And interesting enough, and as you're young people, it comes a lot from people between 40 and 50 or 55, and there's a lot of people who've been very successful in business and seem to have always something missing in their life, otherwise that wouldn't happen. So think about it before you walk that way, because we are in a business school, I'm pretty sure that you are actually planning to go that way. The other thing is that I find very interesting when they look at me, and that they have this picture of a good person. Yeah? Well, probably I am, that's but the most important thing here is that they don't find it normal to do that. And I'm trying to explain you why I'm as a banker at the right place at the right time, and why it is not so different to run an organization like this in 130 countries as it is to a company, and why I can use these skills. But first things first, I would like to talk with you about numbers. I just had a very nice conversation, and I was with a young woman who said she likes numbers. I also like numbers, and bankers like numbers. And I'm working in a field where poverty is a huge problem, and poverty is something we fight against. SDG 1, eliminate poverty, so that's a goal. But we have to be very, very careful when we look at these numbers. And when I was invited here to talk about risk as a catalyst, it could imply that you meant, well, you are a growing industry, a growing sector, because poverty, risk, war is growing as well. Well, that's a little bit cynic, but I'm trying to compromise here. So, what is the definition of extreme poverty? Almost 700 people around the world live in extreme poverty, subsisting on less than $2.15 per day. That's the definition of the World Bank currently. I don't like this number, and I'm very curious to talk about ethics in this number. Because this number changes when you put 10 cents on top of it. So 10 cents makes it 770 million people approximately. Another 10 cents makes it 850 people. Now there is somebody who used to work for the World Bank who wanted to show that we're actually successful by reducing poverty. But it's, again, exactly the same like an analyst in a bank who wants to place a stock at the market, just showing one perspective of this number, yeah? And to tell a good story to sell it. So I mistrust this kind of numbers if they're not put into context, and you should also. Because like that, 20 cents makes twice Germany as many people who are extreme poor. I brought you 3 pieces of Utopia. That's my first one. Because poverty and the field I'm working in is so huge that you very often feel totally overwhelmed. And you can't do it anymore. So you are starting to build utopian goals. You think of, okay, what if I could change the world? That's why I went here. And however, utopian reality is something from which people feel the need of taking pretty frequent holidays. Saying that means I want to talk about what does an NGO like the one I run do. It's huge. We're in 130 countries. We have 100 local organizations. And still we have 80,000 children under care, and we reach to about 2.5 million children. But there are is much more. Our target group, and a lot of people don't know that, is children who lost parental care or at the risk to lose parental care. So our target group currently is around 250 million children in the world, changing a little bit. The most important thing is that we prevent that actually children come to us. And that's a quite interesting business model, isn't it? We are doing everything that they don't end up in our villages. And we're doing everything to actually reduce risk. So also we are not really a risk catalyst for growth. So coming back to the subject of the struggle of NGOs, in the 1990s, we were the organizations where everybody thought, great, it's much better than they do the development work than the state. Because there were so many scandals, so many problems, a lot of corruption. And I think we've done a good job. But the problem is now, we are now so massive and so big as the UN organizations that we get the same criticism, and we are very Western, global North dominated. We're trying to change this. My organization tries to change it. I try to change it. We try to shift to the global South. It's starting slowly, and we get a lot of support from the global South. The initiatives like Pledge for Change 2030 or the Big Bargain, they come from there and they tell us, you need to do your work differently. You need to be locally based, globally connected. That's when we have success. You need to actually give the ownership of the projects to us and not plan it in the global north, tell us what to do, terrible, and then check on us if we do it the way. Why are they right? Because we have enough proof that the development work of the last 70 years again and again got into deep trouble. And when we're looking at the SDG number 1 currently, I don't know who knows it, but we're going backwards. The main reason for that, yes, it's COVID, yes, it's inflation, but I think my book from the 90s probably thought that was another reason in that moment and contextualized it. Talking about risk in the development sector, I would also talk about the way you perceive the growing crisis. You hear very often, there is more wars, there is more risk, there's more crisis. Actually, that's not true. It's high, but it's not the highest. The highest we had in the middle of the 90s, early 90s. The reason for that was genocide in Rwanda. We are for 10 years now on a pretty high level, but we're not on the highest level of victims, and we're talking about death in war and crisis. That shouldn't calm us down. I'm not sending that message, but I'm sending again the message, we need to contextualize what we talk about when we talk about the development sector. The development sector itself was growing massively. We have the highest number ever invested in development work in the world. But it still didn't change anything. Jeffrey Sachs, I'm sure one of the most intelligent people, he's a professor at the Columbia University, said we need to invest $195 billion between 2005 and 2025, and we can eliminate poverty. Didn't happen. We have 2024, okay, there's 1 year left. But I think that's not a big risk, talking about risk that will not work. But the sum was as high. So the thing what he has done and what the Global South is criticizing, and is right of criticizing, is he's planned in the north. He took his analytics and looked at it and said, oh, I understand why these countries are poor. They have a bad climate, they're too hot, they don't have access to the sea, and I remember, I totally don't remember what the third one was, but it was some geographical. And that's the reason. Well, for sure that is not enough to explain that. And we see that small projects, small initiatives, have a bigger guarantee for success. Why is that? Because every human being, which is not themselves responsible for a project, gives the responsibility and the accountability to somebody else. We see Mohammed Yunus with the microcredits. That had its downside as well, but the actual principle of giving small projects or small credits to single individuals was much more successful than the big global planning coming from the global north. So equality, eyesight, power balance, that's the key words, and what we need is 1 million small projects, 1 million innovative people who start working on it, and not like the major problem in front of us, Utopia. So actually, Oscar Wilde is my absolute favorite writer in the world. I read every single piece, and sometimes some of the stuff 10 times. But this one is not true. He's saying a map of the world is not even worth looking at if Utopia is not on it. Utopian thoughts are good to actually build creativity. But in this case, in my sector, in the development sector, it's very, very important that we think small. A problem here is, coming to the last part of Utopia, that we are missing leadership. If human progress had been merely a matter of leadership, we should be in a Utopia today, where we are not. And when this conference started, I was thinking like, am I right here? You know, sometimes I say, to be a little bit funny, I changed from the evil side of power to the good side of power. Also, I like Star Wars a lot. But, as I said in my intro, the skills I need are not very different. I need to manage, I need to be able to focus, I need to control numbers, I need to be fast, I need to be able to scale up, I need to lead. So, why don't we know any star managers from the development sector? Or if you know one, you can shout it, I don't. There is no Forbes list, there is no manager magazine list where they list it up. The only person we know is Bill Gates, because he founded a huge organization. Unfortunately, Bill Gates didn't earn his merits at the development sector or the health sector. He did it with a very small company which had kind of an operating system for computers, and that brought him a fortune. And then he swapped to the development sector. So why do I think is that we don't have enough leadership? Well, probably the main reason is why we don't have that, and I'm trying here to, motivate you to be the next top leaders in the development sector, is that it is very, very hard work. It's tough. And it's taking time until you have success. And I'm a fan of fact-based and experience-based development work. So we are experienced in taking care of children and protect children. So we shouldn't do anything else. But we can change the world by that. And I think I chose an example for you to show you that. First of all, a very, very, very simple circle. First, 3 things must work when we get an abundant child. We need to create a family connection, we need to give education, and we need to make sure that the child is healthy, not in a liquid level, normal. We can talk about that later. But that's the basis. So we do that. We have major projects to do that. The next 2 steps I always put together as well. Participation in the society, in the community. If you are excluded, this is also going to traumatize you so much you cannot, be a successful member of this cycle. Employment is very, very important. It builds the next 2. Livelihood, and it must be a good livelihood. I don't want to talk about $2.25 or $35 or whatsoever. To come to number 7, and that is creating change in the world, social justice and sustainability. And I give you an example of what I mean, so it is very, very clear. This is Claudia. She is a typical Gen Z woman. She grew up in the SOS villages in Bethlehem, so she is at a hotspot. Yeah, she studies media design and works in the community as a volunteer community worker and is preparing for a startup. She is, as I said, 100% Gen Z because she talks like you to somebody old like me, like about activists for mental health and climate change. She's the absolute peer group, and she went through that cycle. And when I meet and talk to her, I know that she can be Bill Gates. So that's the process I believe in, and that's also just a single person, what we believe in, is the much better way to go forward and have, in the moment, as I said, 80,000 of them. But I was asked in the break how I deal with being under attack all the time, and it's actually true. I just been in December to Ukraine, I brought you a couple of pictures. And I know that this actually brings the atmosphere really to a 0 point here. And believe me, you can be happy that I didn't bring pictures from Gaza. This is a village about 100 kilometers from Kiev. You maybe remember the long, long convoy which we all saw here on the television going to Kiev. That's one of the villages where 25 to 35 people were trying to protect their village. And there was a small genocide going on, and people were showing me what happened to their village. I just run through a couple of pictures. This is very close to the front line. So actually I have a job where I have to take risks all the time. Here I'm sitting with the ex-wife of one of the Klitschko's and listening to deported children to Russia, who we managed just 85 of more than 19,000 to bring back. And that's why my face is looking like that. And I just want to tell you that I would finalize now, which what I want from you. Because I promised you in the beginning, I would say, you know, to answer the questions, how you can help or people can help. Actually, that was a lie. I'm not going to say that to you, because I think you need to know yourself. Everybody needs to know what they want to do, how they want to contribute to the world. But be it talking into market mechanisms, I can tell you what I need. I need that we stop to do storytelling when it comes to numbers. We need to contextualize numbers. So we need to, we can make fact-based decisions. We need economical thinking. We need to invest in the development sector and nothing else. We need to have high socially, so please nerds, do something about your empathy, educated employees. We need to solve the small problems, not the average problems. We need youth participation in decision making. I'm very keen on that one. I do not think that age should limit us in any way. We need to be held accountable for the projects we make. We need to create change led by locals. Again, act locally, connect globally, but please let everybody solve their own problems. So I finish with nothing less than asking you to be bold, to be brave, to be courageous, and to be a hero. Thank you very much.